Hey, what's up, dude?
What's up, buddy?
You ever heard of Bad?
Bad what? Bad breath? You have bad breath. Shit, I've smelt it. It's real bad.
Okay. First of all, shut up. Second of all, I'm talking about Bad Workwear.
Oh, yeah? What are they, like a workwear company or something?
Oh, wow. You're an idiot. You're wearing their hat. This is Derek's second story.
I thought it said dab.
All right, welcome to Second Story, everyone. My name's Leckie. With me, as always, is Josh Cybulski. And today, we have a very special guest and a good friend of mine, Derek Dochstader. Derek and I have worked many different capacities, really, but mostly in the marketing for various businesses that we've worked for. And Derek is the proud owner of a company called Builder Gear, which also houses Bad Workwear. So, Derek, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's my pleasure.
For those that don't know what Second Story is, basically what we're doing is we're talking with guests who have had sort of a pivotal moment in their life, and we have many pivotal moments in our lives, but I guess that one that's the defining moment that has kind of changed the course of what you do. So, Derek, I'm gonna kind of let you just take it away and tell us your second story, man.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me, and the concept of this podcast I think is just so interesting because, if you're intrigued by listening to people's stories, it never really comes down to something obvious or straightforward, and I find so much inspiration meeting with people in all different facets of business, along with just different careers, and kind of hearing what put them on their path. And uh, it's like I said, it's usually something pretty abstract that gets them there, and I'm no different. For me, an obvious change in the path was when I left sort of working for someone for working for myself. But that to me was sort of a byproduct of kind of the beginning of where my path started on this right direction. And to kind of get back to that, we're going back to the year 2000. So protect your computers, Y2K crash. I don't know what the band's Blink 182. Like we're going way back there, but
Yeah, me and my
no,
me
it's
and my buddies were all planning to take off and just travel like once the whole grid shut down.
right, right.
Yeah.
I didn't have such a master plan. It was more New Year's Eve was going to be a really good party, and we did have a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're going back to high school, and for me, I would really pinpoint it to the time in my life where I met my wife. It seems cliche, but I was a teenager, and at that time, you would look at me and go, "I don't know what this kid's gonna do." And I'm curious to find out, and not necessarily for good reasons, because I was the class clown. I was big into sports. I was high energy, couldn't sit still, couldn't focus on much. And my parents always joked that if he could give 30 minutes to something, we'll be surprised. And the typical kind of ADHD label that might be thrown at a child at a young age. But I was also kind of burdened by having a really broad social circle, and in those circles were positive and negative influences. And you think at 15 years old, we were getting pulled into many different paths, and I think I could have followed some folks that ultimately had pretty bad outcomes, anywhere from prison to death to drug addiction to all those sort of negative things. And at that really pivotal moment in my life where my career path at 15 was, I was going to study drama through high school and try to be an actor out of Sarnia, Ontario. So I think we could take a stab at where that would have landed me. And didn't really think about my future, didn't really think about what next steps were going to be. I didn't really think about education or specializing in anything. It was just, where's the next fun time going to be, and living in the moment, which we can envy now as adults, but as a kid trying to think for the future, I didn't have a plan. And then I met this young lady who was a year older than me, beautiful and sweet and kind and organized and very, very motivated and on the right path. And she was just like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And it was really kind of that first eye opener that my plan was already failing. And not because she was trying to look at it and say, you can't be an actor or this isn't a good skill set. She just kind of looked at it and said, "I've known you for a short period and I know there's more in the tank." And that to me was like one of the first people that really bought into me. And I think, when I think of where the rest of my life went, that starting point of belief, it was huge, right? So um right away she was just like, "Okay, let's sit down with your timetable and let's figure out like what you're actually studying." And she put me on the path of, what if you got an academic scholarship? And my average at the time, guys, was 65%. And I was so proud of that because I passed. Like, that's all I wanted, just get me through, right?
Sounds
And
familiar.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I remember bringing my report card home to my parents one year and was ecstatic because it spelled ACDC. and and that was kind of like an homage to where my headspace was at. But she said to me, why don't we put a plan together that gets you sort of a safety net? And I took drama. She kept that in there for me. But she's like, "What about business? What about math? What about this? What about that?" And she also knew how to play the system because she was a year older. And she's like, "Well, you got to get a high average. You got to have all your OAC credits." At the time we had grade 13. And she's like, "You're French. Why aren't you taking OAC French and getting a high mark in that? Why aren't you taking OAC drama knowing you'll get a higher mark in that? And that would be another submission." And then her path was being a math teacher. So I had a very good looking tutor for free anytime I wanted. And my mark, even the first year of dating, my average went over 80%. And by the end of high school, with her guidance and just sort of, capturing what was inside of me already, um, I ended up with like, high 90s and a full academic scholarship as a result. And the things that she said to me I should consider felt so foreign, felt unachievable. And I really put it down to that first moment of belief in me that she was like, "No, you can do this and we're going to do this." And everything she said I should do, I did. And I owe it all to her. And coming out of school, you think, okay, well, now I'm going to university. I'm on a different path. I'm getting a degree. I'm leaving that schooling and I'm getting into my first jobs and all of that. Like, you can really start to understand how in the absence of that, the rest of this just wouldn't have fallen in place the way it did. So I owe it to you, Rhonda. She's my soulmate, but that's the beginning of my story that I think is a good place to start.
It's interesting because I think, well, Josh and I both talked on this podcast that we've had similar stories to that with our wives.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
just they came at different times, right? You found yours at 15. I found mine at 21.
Yeah.
Cybulski.
I was how old was I? 27.
Yeah.
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 But it's interesting how these women have put us on a path, and I think all three of us were on a kind of a terrible path prior
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
meeting them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well,
um,
terrible's a little harsh, but I think I
okay,
think we
me
I
and
think we
Josh were
know.
on terrible paths.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we're smart enough to realize how the story was going to end, and I think we'll pick the movie we're in now currently for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Well,
sure.
and I think we should have dropped this maybe on Mother's Day, right? Give a big shout out to our wives and what they
Yeah,
mean to us. But they say, every great person has, a better half, and I think the 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 importance and the significance of finding the right person. It doesn't have to be your spouse. It could be a mentor, it could be a great coach, it could be a great teacher. I mean, anybody that allows you to really kind of reach your potential, I think is a very blessed person to have. Like, you're blessed to have that person in your life. And I just happen to marry mine, right? So and I still have her and she's still my rock and she's still somebody who fills my cup and also pushes me to be a better version of me, right? So having that in my camp is huge. But I think when we try to distill it back to like where did things go right, that it was with her. That's where it really started.
besides your wife, have you had other mentors along the way that have kind of guided you towards your goals and your career path?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few. I was really lucky coming out of university. You know, I got into financial advising, and that was a very scary time. Like right as the markets crashed, like that's when I was coming in about 18 months into my career, and I left that and went back to marketing, which is what I went to school for. And in Sarnia, there's not a lot of marketing work. And I was really blessed to meet, Rob Dawson and Rich Bouchard. These were young entrepreneurs with an agency in Sarnia doing some pretty impressive things for a small business. And, at the ripe age of 23, I think the best thing that both of those guys did was they gave me they gave me opportunities that my experience didn't warrant me having. I was underqualified for everything I did in that job, and allowed to fail, allowed to take risks, allowed to take chances. And um, another colleague of mine, Brian Whitehead, who was there with me, we kind of look at it as like a very obscure MBA program, because it was like we did so much in so little time. I was there for maybe 4.5 years, and the amount of things I was able to be involved in such a short period was better than any schooling, better than any formulated program you could go to kind of advance your knowledge. Like we were in the trenches and we were doing crazy things for our age, and I think that was an experience that when I left there to get into management and marketing with the YMCA, when I entered that role, now I am qualified. Now I do have the experience, and in some facets, I had experienced more real life marketing than the role was even requiring me to have, and able to bring those insights and kind of change the philosophy of marketing within that organization. So I don't think I would have been able to secure that position and evolve in that position to a vice president, in the absence of meeting those two guys at Anivity early in my career. So that's an experience I would never have given up, and I'm very grateful for.
So you talked about you were allowed to fail and you're kind of given room and to develop and stuff like that, and you were underqualified. How far out of your own comfort zone did you have to go in that position to sort of get to what your ultimate goal was?
Well, I think a great part of being a good leader, which we had there, was like recognizing that although we felt we might fail, that they could see that we were equipped to succeed. And the the role that I was in was meant for me. I was in business development, I was in marketing, and doing the things I'd been passionate about doing. So it wasn't like getting somebody who doesn't like to present to get in front of 1,000 people. It was my wheelhouse. It was just I'd never done it at that capacity. So I didn't start doing a little project for a local business. I was working right off the hop with a national organization and building, a pretty significant platform for sponsorship with Canadian charities. So like that right off the hop was my first crack at bat, was with something fairly large and significant. So those are the kind of examples where I'm like, at my age, I've never done this before, and they're just handing me the docket and say, make it happen. How do I do it? I don't know. Figure it out. And we did. And I think that's precious, man. Learning that there's going to be a blank piece of paper someday that you got to fill, and you're going to get tasked to do things that you don't know how to do it. And life is full of those moments where you don't know and you are doubting yourself. And I think what I learned out of that was I had a lot of talent around me, like a lot of talent, great designers, great copywriters, all sorts of folks there that were really great, and lean on that, and not be the smart person in the room, and be humble about the things you can't do, and take more of a team approach to the things that you're tackling, and learn how to ask for help and be honest about the things you don't know. Because I think the people that feel like their authority or their ability to be taken seriously in their position is rooted in knowing everything, I think those are the ones that don't advance. I think those are the ones that tend to, weirdly enough, fail faster than the ones that are showing up and saying, I'm going to learn how to do this and I don't know how to do it. So that was kind of my approach, and it served me really well.
That was Anivity, right? the
Hmm.
marketing agency. Um, I think when you worked there, you gained a lot from them as far as mentorship goes. And myself, I actually have considered you to be a big mentor to me in business, and you've helped me along the way and inspired me through a lot of process of me building myself up in my own business. Um, how have you um, built on that throughout the years, and what do you like, do you like to pass that on? Is that something that you like to do, is pass on knowledge to people now?
That's a good question. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, uh, I always approach any relationship with starting with what can I bring to the table, not what can I take. Whether it's just telling a joke or making someone laugh, or you know, wanting to host a party versus attend a party, like, you know, any relationship in my life, I just find that more fulfilling. And I've been very blessed. Like I've mentioned, I can think of a lot more mentors, even Jim Jansen at the Y. I mean, like, great people, great leaders that have given me tools that I will never be able to be taken away from me. These are forever tools that I've got. And I've been given that if I can give one thing to somebody, like, I'm ecstatic, and I'm looking for those opportunities all the time. And I really think that, you know, in the absence of your willingness to share, how can you be eager to receive, right? And that kind of reciprocity factor. And not only that, like, I look at, you know, even someone like yourself, Corey, like when we were having those big life conversations about trying to get you to do sort of put you on the path where you are now, was me seeing somebody who was unhappy in a role that really wasn't fully enveloping what you are as a creative, as a passionate creator and talent, and going, how do we get this guy to be sitting in the seat where he wakes up every morning and goes, this isn't even a job, and you weren't there yet. And if I can not force you into a direction that I believe is right, but more so give you the ability to evaluate what that would look like and go chase that, whether that was working with me or working elsewhere. I didn't care. I just wanted to see you navigate that path. And I, for me, it's not saying, oh, I think I get this. I'm just telling you how I got there. And if my method of figuring that out for myself can be valuable for you to do it, then that to me is a more beneficial thing than giving you some, you know, hot stock tip, or a way to, you know, compound interest. It's like, no, I'm giving you some guidance on things that are a little bit more macro, that have a bigger impact on your life. And we can get into those nitty gritty micro elements, but that's the kind of guidance that I've received. And I feel like if I can reciprocate that in any capacity, that can fundamentally change some people's lives for the better.
It's funny you talk about like a willingness to share. I didn't really have that before I met my wife, and then I met her, and you know, she kind of set me on the right path. And Corey, you probably experienced this too, but do you think your own willingness to share? Do you think that was something that you developed over time, having met your wife and been sort of mentored, or do you think that was something that you had all along? You just hadn't realized it.
Um, I guess the best way to put it is, early in my life, I don't think I had a lot to offer. Like I didn't have, you know, if somebody wanted to, you know, learn how to play golf at a young age or something, I might have some tips, but like I didn't have wisdom. And I think that's just something that, as you amass it over time, then there's something to give, right? So I think my personality was always there to be wanting to be helpful, but not necessarily being equipped with the things that would bring value to people early in life. So as that started, you know, accumulating for me personally and in my career, then right away I was able to kind of translate that into helping other people. And I do that on the daily, you know, however small, medium, or large it is. Like, I just find that very fulfilling. And I also think, like, from a relationship standpoint, um, it just builds a different version of friendships, whether it's business or pleasure. I just think, you know, if everybody that's engaging together is really out for each other's best interest, that's just, it's a great way to form relationships, and the way I approach things.
The way we met Josh, maybe you don't know this story, but I was working in the financial industry as well, and very unhappy because my passion was always in media and in video
Yeah.
and film production. And out of nowhere, I was kind of I would say kind of at the rope's end. Like I was in therapy for it and all kinds of stuff. And out of nowhere, Derek calls me. Never met this guy before in my life, and he says, "Hey, I've heard about you from a few different people around your video production. Very strange request here, but I have this marketing coordinator position coming open at the Y, and it's just a 1 year contract. Is that something you'd be interested in?" And I like these moments come along, and you just have to go. I'm not like someone that believes in fate and magical things happening and sparkly dust in the uniform in the universe that makes things happen, but they do happen. And if you're open to them, great things can come from that, right? And interestingly enough, though, the thing that I remember most about that whole situation, because it was several months before that ever
Yeah.
actually came into play, like
Yeah.
maybe even like 5-6 months, right?
Yeah.
um but after that initial reach out, I started the process to leave what I was doing to focus on that. But I remember going, Derek, I need something in writing. Derek, I need a contract. I need something before I can quit this job. And he basically said to me, you need to quit for you. You need to quit because you're going to follow your dreams, not because there's a job sitting waiting for you.
Right.
So I did. I took that jump. I quit my job. I just had faith that what I was doing was the right path and that I hopefully had a safety net with this relationship that I was building with this dude that called me out of nowhere. So
Yeah.
Interesting.
I
We're
did. I did hire him for the record. I
yeah,
was like, "What happened? What happened?" Uh,
out of pity,
we
right?
Sorry, Corey. Change of heart, bud. Didn't get the budget.
Yeah, if
Best of
we had
luck.
someone better came along,
I could see that
someone with
happening.
actual marketing experience.
Yeah. Even at that point in your life, Corey, when you're so at the end of things in the corporate world, you still had this allergy to taking that risk. It is the way we're brought up, though. Like at least that was my upbringing: is always choose a safe path, and I think it's safe path tends to lead to dead ends. At least that's been my experience. Um, I worry about the generation that's coming up behind us because of this, because they've been taught their entire lives to play everything safe,
Right.
like by their parents, by school, by society, everything's safe. And you kind of see it now, at least like in my world. Like I work with a lot of young kids in their early 20s coming out of college and stuff like that. And they've basically been told their entire life, like you don't take risks, you play it safe, you go, you take a corporate job where you get a steady paycheck. That's the path to go on. And for both of you, neither of you took the safe path, and I also have always kind of gone the riskier route in my life as well. um I don't know, it seems like it's getting, people want more and more to have safety over having this willingness to take a chance.
That's a good
Eh,
point. I mean, I think the way I would frame it is like there's a way of taking calculated risk. I don't think I was ever really risky. I'm still not really risky. And like thinking back to like how did I get my opportunity with that agency in Sarnia? I didn't go quit my job and then put out some resumes and hope for the best. I did sort of like Corey did. I sort of tread the line and made the decision to make a move and then look to see what was out there. But how I got that job was I printed a resume. I walked through the front door of the agency. I met Julie, who is my future coworker, and said, "Hey, I'm really interested in working here. I've got a marketing background, and as you know, there's not a lot of places where I can hone those skills in this city, and I think I'd be a good fit here. Who could I speak to about potentially, looking for opportunities?" And she's like, "Oh, it would be with Rob, and he's not in right now." And I left her my resume and just kind of thought, that's the end. Like this is one of those, all being polite and say, "Well, we'll take your resume," and away you go. And I got an email that afternoon, right? And next thing you know, I'm in interviews and then I'm hired. So it wasn't like, there was some magical thing that landed on my lap. Like, I mean, sometimes the formula is just go after it. And I think to your point, Josh, like one of the things that this next generation is not blessed with is interpersonal skills at the level that I think maybe our generation is, because it's digital, it's Snapchat, it's
Hmm.
texting, it's, DMing. All the ways that we're communicating modernly now is not the same as being in person. So, if there's somebody looking at, what could be my magical skill? Do I learn coding? Do I learn AI technology? Like all these up and comers, like what is my magic sword going to be that's going to allow me to beat the dragon? It could be just learning how to speak, like just learning how to look someone in the eye with confidence and have a conversation. Look how to build relationships and network. Like to me, like that skill in the next 10 years is going to be a huge differentiator, because it's going to become more and more dormant. And I think the roles that call for that and can be very fruitful for that don't necessarily need 7 8 years of schooling, right? You
Hmm.
can do really well in real estate investing. You can do really well in even financial advising without dedicating 10 years of your life to schooling. But if you have the relationship side of things, I think that's the stuff that, I look at my own kids. How do you get that to be a skill that they have that is just going to become more and more important and less visible? Like that's where I have that in my children. I'm excited for that for them, because I'm like, you guys are halfway there. Forget the other skills. I mean, you can go and order a sandwich without breaking out into hives, right? Like that's sort of what's coming around the corner. So
Talking about like networking and stuff like that. That's the whole reason that Corey and I started this, was to basically have an excuse to network
yeah,
with people we otherwise probably would never have a conversation with. The the most successful person I've ever met in my life, the most successful person I know, is probably the best networker I've ever seen, the best communicator in terms of like just talking to a stranger.
yeah,
He is not that bright in terms of like traditional academics. Like he once got 6% on a math test in high school. Like
yeah.
that's him. But the absolute best networker I've ever seen, and he's ultra successful because of it. So I think you're right. I think that is the path that we're headed towards if we're not there already.
I like the word successful. I guess I'd ask you two gentlemen, what do you guys consider success? Because I think that's an interesting topic. Because I've had different answers for that along different timelines in my career. So, what do you guys define as success?
For me personally, and I don't think this is a broad definition, I just take this as my own definition. I believe success is waking up every day and not dreading what you're gonna do that day. That to me is a success. I don't look at the financial side. I don't look at any of that. I look at, am I going to enjoy that day? And for me, most of my days I do enjoy. So I do view myself as a successful person, because I get to do a lot of things that I love. I have a family that I get to hang out with that I love. I live in a place that I enjoy. All of those things I'm successful in. So to me, that's the definition of success.
Very cool. What about you, Corey?
Well, I think success, much like, I don't know, terms like enlightenment and things like that, like I don't think success is something that you actually reach. Like I think it's an ongoing kind of an ongoing journey. But I
Like it's
feel like,
infinite, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
like I feel like you're always working towards some new level of success. Um and but I think what's important is, are you enjoying that journey? Are
Yeah,
you happy in it? Like it's not always going to be happy, of course, like especially running a business, you're not always going to be like, man, this is the best day of my life. Like
right.
things get hard, they do. But are you able to take those hard things and run with them and then be fulfilled on the outcome of that? And then on a personal side, I mean, I could not be more successful feeling on a personal side. Like
Right.
I've got healthy, intelligent children. They've got, no health problems. They're, beautiful, just a beautiful family. My wife, we're partners in life. We do everything together. We get along. We're not at opposing ends. We work together on things, whether it's financial, whether it's, our work situations, our mental health, whatever it is. We're together on that. And to me, that's the best success that you could ask for. So
Yeah, and
a
well,
little bit.
I don't mean to interview the interviewers, but I just thought that would be an interesting question to ask you guys, because it's usually hearing everyone else's version of success. But I echo your sentiments, gentlemen. Like I think we're at a similar path in our lives where we can kind of see that, but I do think it's important to kind of mention the fact that I think we could all be honest that that's changed. Like I came out of university with dollar bills in my eyes. Like that was,
Mhm.
and it was very ego driven. Like even going into university was ego driven. I was looking for a role that I felt was perceived to be um successful. Like I went to school,
Status.
I went to,
The
yeah, I went to
status
go,
symbol. Yeah.
I went to school for money, and that was the wrong way to handle it. I went to school to be an accountant. I thought at the time being, you know, a CPA would be well respected. It's a good secure job, good money, all that. And almost like I wanted a title that would be almost like a shock value to people to be like, oh, Derek's an accountant, or like, right. And I went to school first year, did well, but then second year realized I'm not on the right path. And that was like a pretty big failure for me. Like I felt like a failure changing out of that, like almost like, because I had lined up everything along the way to get into that program. It was a really hard program to get into. And everything went right. And then I just felt like I made a big mistake. And that to me was one of those failures that I struggled with. I had a really bad bout with mental health, and all that was like tied into making the wrong decision. And at sometimes the lower points, you get humbled by it. And that's when I realized that being motivated by something like money is the wrong way to handle it. And I went back to the drawing board about what are my real passions. And I remember my first marketing class, and I got my textbook, and I was supposed to read chapter 1 by the next class. And I was like 5 chapters in and just reading it for leisure, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is where I belong." And
Hmm.
you know, I share that because I would love for somebody to feel like they're on the path that's ego driven and have the opportunity to change it now. Because and it would have been hard to change my mind at that time, but you know, that was one of those things where from that point on, it was not, success to me was not defined by money. Success was, back to your points, like waking up, being happy, being excited, being engaged in what I'm doing. And as I define success, being with my wife so young, you know, family and marriage and all that stuff was on my, it was in my purview at 15. I bought the ring we were engaged with at 17 years old, right? Like this is how long I knew I was going to marry this woman. And you know, once we got married, had kids and all that, back to your point, Corey, like I always joke, like I'm the richest man I know in the things that count, right? So
Right.
oftentimes success can be blurred by all sorts of things, but I also do take the approach that I don't believe that we will ever be fully full if we're really passionate about what we're doing. Because like, you know, if you're a creator, you can create one more thing. If you're an inventor, you can invent one more thing. If you know, you
Yeah.
love gardening, well, what if I have one more bud bush? You know, it's like I want more of something, and I think that's what's exciting. There's no end. There's no end. But
Yeah.
if you're chasing monetary things that you think will fill the void, that's a really scary journey, because
Yeah.
billionaires are depressed and lonely and sad, right?
Dude, the least happy I've ever been in my life was when I was making the highest salary.
Hmm.
Same.
The least safe I ever felt in my life was when I was at the safest job I had ever been in,
That's
right?
nuts. Yeah.
Like feeling like you were going to be cut at any moment, or just say we've talked about this lots, Josh, about just how I feel less risk running my own business. I actually feel more safe in doing that because I'm in control of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if people are aiming for happiness with money helps.
Sure
we
does.
we
Yeah.
need money to pay the bills and live,
Yeah.
but you're not going to find happiness in the finance. You will find money though, if you're successful and doing something that you're passionate about.
Agreed.
That money's going to come with that, right?
Yeah. Something that I think people forget about money is all money is just a representation of value. That's what money is, right?
Yep.
And I haven't always looked at it like that, but I do look at it like that now, and I see a lot more value out of the other things in my life, like family, like friendships, relationships, being creative. That all mean I see way more value in that than I actually do in money. Obviously, I still need money to live and to put goofy shit on my walls, but it's just another thing that is a representation of value to me. So that's kind of how I see it. There was a Gary Vee who had the quote about the happiest people he knows make like 45 grand a year. I think it was Gary Vee.
Yeah.
He
Sounds
talked
Gary
about it.
V.
Yeah, he was talking about he's like, I know billionaires who are depressed, and I know,
Yeah.
the happiest people I know make 45 grand a year. So
Yeah,
yeah,
he probably said it more like, I know fucking billionaires that make 45. They're depressed and they make
You
fucking
gotta go to
yeah,
a
45.
garage sale. You
Ah,
gotta go to a
shit.
yeah.
Now
garage
we
sale.
now we got to put explicit on this one. Damn it.
Oh God, at least it's on the first couple of minutes for YouTube. We'll be fine. Uh, it
Well,
was Gary Vee. It was Gary Vee who said it.
Yeah.
well, I think the other one I heard that we probably heard a bunch of times is the guy says, "I'm gonna give you $1 million, and if
Mhm.
I give you $1 million, what's your response?" And
Thank you.
the guy's like, "I'm ecstatic, like I'm pumped. Like, are you jumping on the couches? Are you you know clapping hands and screaming? Yeah, I'm real pumped." He goes, "Okay, but what if I told you that you get the $1 million, but you don't get to wake up?" He's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, That's the deal. You get the $1 million today, but you don't get to wake up tomorrow. Are you gonna take it?" He's like, "No." He's like, "So every day you wake up is better than getting $1 million?" And when I heard that and kind of clicked in my brain, I'm like,
Hmm.
man, that's. And I think, like, with the last like 3 years, COVID, all that stuff, like, I've been to 11 funerals, and I would say five of those are people that were very close to me. And two of which were under the age of 40 and really good, like, lifelong friends. And you go, how? Like, the scarcity of life, all of that, we're starting to see kind of the finiteness of life and how insignificant things are. And that's
Hmm.
been a big change in my family where, money buys a lot, money does a lot, and money helps a lot. But, we've transitioned into shopping for memories instead of things, and shopping for experiences. I think that was a byproduct of COVID because we were so trapped in a cage forever that when we were finally set free, it was like, what do we want to do? What did we miss? What do we got to make up on? But it then became more habitual where it's like, we could go buy this thing, or we can spend the same amount of money and do this experience together. And, I've heard a lot of people say you'll never regret the memories, right? You're never going to look back and say, I wish I bought more things, right?
Yeah.
It's what can you experience as an individual and as a family or with friends. And that's been a really big change. And that's kind of what philosophically has changed my view on money, right? Like, kind of like we said, it's just a store of value. It's not really anything important. And not only that, when you think of your friendships and your relationships, like, status means nothing to me. Like, I don't care what car you drive, I don't care how big your house is. Like, when it comes down to it, people that bring joy to you are the ones you call, are the ones you have over, are the ones you want to share big moments with. None of that has anything to do with what you do for a living, how much money's in the bank, what's in your dividend account. Like, none of that matters. It really doesn't matter, right? And I think with the conversation of success, it always gets back to money. And personally, it's usually bottom of the list for me when you're trying to define what success looks like. So I think we're all on the same page.
Going to that, the subject of creating relationships and building on that. I know with your current business with Bad Workwear, you've done a lot of relationship building with your ambassador program. So I don't know, maybe you could talk a bit about Bad and kind of what you've built as far
Yeah.
as a program there.
Yeah, I mean, talking about opportunities, Bad was one of those moments where you kind of like walking into that agency and giving my resume. We were in a position with Builder Gear where we were taking a safety product across North America, and I'd transitioned from kind of suits and ties to being on job sites and not having workwear. And at the time, I was in my mid 30s, and I wasn't just going to wear, the classic proverbial work pants. I wanted something that looked professional and I felt good in, and didn't exist. I went to Mark's Work Warehouse. I went to Work Authority, all these big companies that have all sorts of options. And I remember sending my wife a picture of me in the change room with a pair of Carhartt work pants that were a size 32. And I had both legs and one leg hole all the way up to my waist. And I wrote her, "This is what they call slim fit." And I was like, okay. I left with a pair of Dockers and just called it a day. And then I was on Instagram and I saw this pair of work pants that popped up, and they were from Bad Workwear out of Australia. And I'm like, what is this? Who are these guys? This is unreal. It was the best looking pair of work pants I'd ever seen. Sent it to my wife. She's like, buy them. I'm like, it's $50 in shipping. So I looked in. I'm like, someone's got to have them in the US or Canada or whatever. Nobody was carrying them. And I reached out to them just on a whim saying, hey, I love what you guys are doing. I think your brand's incredible. I think your products are incredible. We're a business that's going to be in the same target demographic as you, working with trades folks across the country in the US and Canada. And we'd love the opportunity to potentially bring Bad along for the ride. Shot in the dark. What's the chances? And then I get an email from the founder saying, we were looking for a way to get over there, and we get this email from you. Let's set up a call. And it was about a 6-month process, and Cam and I came to an agreement and got our business the exclusive rights to the brand and the product in North America, which was a phenomenal opportunity, and it continues to be an amazing opportunity. So that was one of those paths I didn't know I was going on. I didn't necessarily have the background or experience. Was very transparent with that with the Australian team, but my passion was for that brand and branding and marketing as an expert in that field. And all that time leading up to that moment was really building that skill set to say confidently, I'm the right person to make this brand a household name. So that was serendipity working overtime. But when we brought that brand to market, one of the strategies that I had was, nobody knows who we are. It's from another world. Australia is so far away. There's not a lot of bleed in terms of brands that live there and brands we know about over here, because there's 10,000 miles between us. So my strategy was, I can market the idea of this being a great product, or I can have people tell the truth about what they really feel, which based on my own experiencing the products and the brand itself, was going to be, they'd be blown away, and I'll put my money where my mouth is. And, we built a team really early on of about 60 people that were in the trades, very well respected, very good social network and follower counts. And the option was, try the gear and give us your honest feedback. And of those 60 people that we started with, 59 of them are still with us. So I think that on its own is a big testament. But that approach was the way to do it, because I can have a fancy ad, or I can have, something saying that this is the best, this is great, this is wonderful. Or I can have somebody that you already trust and you follow give the honest feedback about what this stuff is all about. And, something like a waterproof hoodie, you're like, okay, this can't be as good as it is. And then you get somebody wearing it going, this is as good as it is, and they're telling the truth, then away you go. Right. So, but the crux of what you were getting at, Corey, was sort of like the relationship side of things. It's back to what I said earlier. I don't approach this as, I want you to make me money. I want you to sell me products. I'm going to give you products and you need to do this for me. It really is. It starts with, I've had an experience where I had a need that wasn't met until I met Bad. And I feel like that's a common thing. Are you happy with your workwear? Are you on the quest for something better? And if so, are you willing to try this out to see if that's what this is? And I mean that. I really do mean it. And I think it's an easy thing for somebody to believe because I'm telling the truth. And when they get the product, my expectations with them is never, give, give, give. It's keep it offline. I don't want you to post anything. You don't need to post anything. I just want you to try it. And then let's circle back. And if it's as good as I've claimed it is, then I think we're going to have a lot of fun working together. And I would say 95% of the time, it leads to a very long lasting and mutually beneficial relationship where they're very happy, we're very happy, and we do have a lot of fun working together and collectively make a pretty impressive impact. So um, when you were talking about sort of getting your fixes on networking and using this podcast as a way to kind of meet new people, I'm hungry for that too. And I find that the ambassador program that we've got, it allows me to kind of meet people from all over the place, different walks of life, different trades, different regions where they're living, and that to me fills my cup on the need to meet new people and build honestly some long-term friendships. Like I always joke, like we have some folks tied to our brand that met, got married, and have a baby in the time I've been working with them with this brand. So
Like two ambassadors got together, you mean?
two ambassadors that I don't know if they necessarily met directly through the Bad program, but they're both represented us, and they're both kind of in the influencer space. They've met, they've got married, and have a baby in the time that I've known them working with Bad. So that's like an interesting one where I'm like, how cool is that? That when I say we build strong bonds, sometimes they're lifelong bonds. So but yeah, it's I guess for me, I'm always just looking for ways to engage. So this was one that not only was helpful for our business, but like I said, gave me kind of the week by week way to kind of engage with new people, and oftentimes leaving those calls with new knowledge or new guidance. And then back to your point about me always wanting to do that, I find that's one of the ways and places that I can give the most amount of value to somebody. Selfless value, really just saying, I want to help you and with nothing in return. And the experience that I've got over the last 4 years doing that, somebody who's just getting started, I have got lots of great advice. And the fun part is it's not my advice from my day to day. It's actually the collective learning from hearing everybody else's success and how they've grown and flourished in kind of influencer marketing, and saying, hey, I can tell you with the surety that these three things work. And here's three people that have done it, and here's how they achieved it. And now I'm able to kind of speak confidently, but from somebody else's experience, with nothing else but the quest to try and help them grow. So
Mhm.
that to me is like it's a really sincere knowledge bank that I'm very generous with and eager to share, because it's just, I've given those seeds, watched them be planted and harvested, and that success for them makes me even more motivated to do that for the next person. And it's a lot of fun. I
Yeah.
enjoy it.
One of the things, well, there's a few things I like about your story. But one of the things that really comes to mind is just how relatable and real it is. You talking about going to do something simple like buy pants, and you always hear these stories about like entrepreneurs or people who invent things. They're like, oh, there was no product to fill my need. Here it is, like I
Yeah.
created it or I found it or what have you, and brought it to other people. It's such a relatable thing. But talking about the ambassador program, one thing that I really like that you did is you found people who are authentic. And I don't know that there's really a lot of that online in the world that we live in. I think a lot of people would probably agree with that. Everything is kind of a show. Like
Yeah.
everything that we see is very pre-planned and packaged and handed to us. And what you're doing is very real. It's very authentic. Picking people who are actually out in the world. Like I can remember going on Instagram and seeing some like bodybuilder drinking Mountain Dew, and they're like, "Oh, I gotta have my Mountain Dew." It's like there's no, not to you know talk trash about Mountain Dew, but there's no way they're
You,
drinking
sh-
Mountain Dew
you should talk
at the
trash about
gym.
Mountain Dew. Come on.
Well, I mean, I haven't had Mountain Dew in probably 20 years, but
Mountain Dew's terrible.
I would not drink it at that Simpsons bit with the crab juice. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Um, Mountain Dew though, no, who's drinking Mountain Dew at the gym, or
Maybe
who
maybe
works out
maybe
with regularity?
maybe a pre-workout substitute or something. But yeah, I'm with
He's
you.
just doing the do, man. He's
He's
just
he's
doing the
Do the
just
do.
do.
getting paid for it. Well, I
Yeah,
mean, like
exactly.
guys like the Logan Pauls of the world, where you look at it and you go, "Can I believe it?" Like he's a great marketer, but is that real? Is this really what he claims it to be? And I don't know. Like for me, early in my sales career, I learned that the easiest way to be believed is to tell the truth. It seems so straightforward, but the
Hmm.
easiest way to be believed is just tell the truth.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
I apply that to marketing, it really, I think, shined through with a lot of the work that Corey and I did at the Y, where it used to be a stock photo and overlay copy saying, this is what you're going to get at the Y. And I'm like, well, how can I believe that when that person's not in our country and not
Hmm.
in our facilities and not smiling because they've experienced anything we offer? Why don't we translate that into realness? And we did a whole initiative where, whether it was childcare, whether it was health and fitness, summer camp, all our stuff was real people. And it seems so obvious. Tell the truth. Like just show, that McDonald's hamburger. Imagine if you just put what it really looks like in that wrapped foil or whatever, right? And it's like all smushed
Yeah.
down and gnarly. It's like, no, I've never eaten a burger that looks like it does in the commercials. But I bet you if a brand was honest about it and almost self-deprecating about it, it'd be like, I'm gonna eat at that burger joint because I know what
Yeah.
I'm getting, and they're willing to show that and say it's still the greatest in the city, right? And
It's the Buckley's model, right? Like
exactly,
tastes awful, but it
exactly.
works.
And I
Yeah.
think I think for me, like going through that experience with the Y and seeing the difference, like we got like the YMCA to me was never somewhere where I felt like like a precursor to the brand, just in the public knowledge of it. I wasn't like, oh, this is like a tear jerker kind of brand. I'm gonna weep openly. I've never cried more in public in my entire life than when I worked at the Y. Never in my life have I cried more openly in public. And
Mm.
the stories you'd hear, because we started pulling it back and going, you know, what are we trying to get to? If you're selling a membership, it's not about the weights that you have and the equipment that you have. We were telling stories about a senior citizen recovering from a heart attack and what the rehabilitation looked like and the support they got at the YMCA. And
Yeah.
we were talking about somebody who lost their wife young and was lonely, and the companionship and friendships that they built at the Y, and all these things. A woman who was living off of from food bank to food bank, that ended up getting her first job after dealing with a major health issue, was like through all these different things, was all
Yeah.
stuff that was out there in the ether that nobody knew about, that was just kind of like marketing gold, not because it was deceptive or because it was heavily influential. It was relatable, it was authentic, and it was real. So then naturally, when I go into doing something like building a brand name over here for an existing product, I didn't have to design it. I didn't have to create it. The brand itself and the products were already fantastic. My only job was, how do I get people to agree that this is worth trying? And back to your point, just be real and have real people telling those stories. And I think the Y experience is really kind of what made me have to do it that way, because it was like, how do you go back to the other way of doing it? Like, it just can't.
Hmm.
I can't.
One of the best pieces of advice I got, it was from a gentleman that had owned a bakery in a small town. It was when I was working at the bank, and I was starting my business up, and I said to him, he was retiring from his business after 40 years.
Yeah.
I said to him, "You've run that bakery for a long time. What what's the best piece of advice that you could give me as a new business owner, someone that's just starting out?" And his advice was just what you said: always tell the truth to your customers,
Yep.
to whoever you're dealing with, your suppliers, whoever it is. Always tell the truth, because you never have to try to remember the truth. Truth
Yeah.
is the truth. If you tell a lie, if you're like, oh, that, I didn't get that done because of whatever lie you want to tell,
Yeah.
you have to remember that lie 2 days down the road, 2 months down the road, 2 years down the road. they come back and say, "What was that reason again?" Oh shit, I got to remember
Right.
that
Right.
lie that I told 2 years ago,
And
right?
have accomplices. Your staff have to be on the same, like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Corroborate your
So,
story.
yeah, same thing. Like as I've gone through business, it's always been, I'm not going to be able to, if I can't meet your deadline, it's because of this. And this is how it is. Where do you want to
Yeah.
go from here? Like let's just be honest about it, right? And it's a good way. It is a really, it seems so simple, but you do sometimes in your head go, oh, I could just lie about this.
Why do you think in a world where people are really craving authenticity, like that's my feeling, is that people want something that feels real. Why are we still spoon fed so much stuff that's just artificial?
The way I would put it is there's if everybody was honest, there would be a lot less success. Like, and I'll frame this way. Okay, think of just food. Okay, if everybody was really honest about what we're eating, how much do you think you'd consume of the things we consume? Hey, this is going to make your heart explode. And you know that like raging diarrhea you have, it's because you've drank this every morning. Like, if everybody was really sincere and honest about everything that they're offering, there's just too much garbage. And by
Hmm.
virtue, if there's too much garbage being sold, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that they're going to choose to do the deceptive version of it, or the disingenuine version of it, where they make you believe it's better or healthier or more impressive than it really is. And by virtue, you're going to have to sift through all of that media garbage to go, what's actually real out there? And it's becoming more and more difficult. But I just think trash is marketed with you're basically putting lipstick on a pig, and
Yeah.
that there's a lot of that. And when I think the interesting part with my bad workwear experience is the when I meet with people that learn about the product and the brand for the first time, and how like unjustifiably excited they get. Like if I meet with like an ad agency or somebody that maybe does like digital marketing or something, they're not pumping my tires. They're literally like, we could make this thing explode, because they look at it going, this has all the ingredients to be magical. Because think of Carhartt, Dickies, like all these
Yeah.
major brands out there, they're not doing what we're doing, and we've already done it and it's already here. It's not like I'm like, oh, we're going to revolutionize. These are the things we're going to create. It's been here. It's already here. And it's already selling through the way you'd expect it to. And to me, that's where things are going to go. And somebody mentioned the other day about like objects are going to become like there's going to be like a renaissance period for objects. So a good example would be you walk in your kitchen, you're uninspired by the pots and pans in your kitchen. There's pots and pans. Like no one's like, I have the blah 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 pot. Like no one cares. It's just a pot, it's just a pan. But now pay attention to what's out there. There is, designer pots that are they're all this certain color line, and they're made of these like, toxin free, ceramic, this, blah, blah, blah. They're making something so bland be almost like an industry, kind of like what Yeti did. Here I am drinking my Yeti. We're not getting sponsored yet, are we? Hey, you getting them sponsored? But like, I'm drinking from a Yeti cup, and they just took an object, just a random thing that didn't really matter, and they made it matter. And I feel like that is like the lane that I see not necessarily being cluttered, because to do that in an impressive way, like say Yeti did, means you have to have a product that's actually great, and then have the ability to prove that in the market under a cluttered umbrella. So you're not going to do that with something like the next potato chip easily, because it's just a cluttered space. I think if anything, when somebody receives our products, they they've been told they're great and they have high expectations. When I got my first waterproof hoodie, I was like an 11. I got it, put it on, and it was a 14. That's
Yeah.
the fun part, is not only are we making like really strong claims, but we have something that can back it up. Yet he says, we'll keep your ice cold for 2 days, and you go fishing and you've got a cooler full of beer that you forget about in the back of your hot truck for 2 days, and you fire it open and it's ice cold. That is why they are who they are, not because of some weird marketing tactic that's, found a way to make people believe more of the falsehoods. It's actually just having a great product while also having a great distribution channel and a great marketing team, because everyone's like, this is the best coffee mug, this is the best cooler, this is the best thing for me to put my mixed drinks in when I got to walk the kids to the bus stop in the morning and I'm an early morning drinker, right? Like, I'm joking about that. That's a dad joke, but kind of serious because it's getting warm.
Sometimes you need an old fashioned
Yeah,
at 7 a.m.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you, and I think like the bigger lesson about all of this is just kind of back to our notion of authenticity. It's like, it doesn't matter what business you're going into, just tell the truth. Like, it's so painfully obvious and so straightforward. And I think you were asking why, when we're craving it so much, we're getting less and less of it. I'm actually seeing really good examples of businesses that are bringing the heat on the authenticity factor.
So yeah, we're a little bit over the hour mark. So Derek, thanks so much for coming on. And I just if you have anything else that you wanted to add.
Yeah, I mean, this has been awesome. I think we've dove into a bunch of different things and covered a lot. So, I'm hoping somebody listening can take some wisdom from what we've chatted about today. And if anything, the three of us are all kind of proof that, self-doubt is vicious. Believe in yourself and find a way to take some chances on things that you think you might not be capable of. We've all learned firsthand that you can surprise yourself when you actually just commit and take the leap. So hopefully somebody finds some inspiration in our stories.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Nice chatting.